Welcome to a new episode of Showing Up Solo. These days, it's not enough to be a small business owner. You also have to be an online marketing expert, an accountant, a website designer, a content creator, and the list goes on. You know how important marketing is, but if you're spending all your time selling your services, how will you have any time left to actually provide them? That's where Showing Up Solo comes in. Showing Up Solo is a video podcast giving you the ins and outs of online marketing from solopreneurs just like you. Tune in every other Wednesday for easy-to-implement advice, guest experts, and plenty of food analogies. Thanks for tuning in, and now, on to the main episode. Everyone, and thank you for joining me for another episode of Showing Up Solo. Today, I am super excited to be joined by Tom Stanhope, video maker and marketing expert. Tom is a little bit to blame for this series because it was one of his masterclasses on showing up on video, and actually a second masterclass as well on the power of YouTube that really inspired Nicole and I to start this series and to get onto YouTube instead of just leaving our video content on Instagram. So Tom, now that you know that you're to blame for Showing Up Solo, would you like to introduce yourself and let people know a little bit more about you?
Well, hello, and thank you so much for having me here. And I what a lovely thing to hear, is because this is essentially what I do. So my background is in video. I've been in the world of video since 2001. So it has been a long time. I've seen a lot of changes. The first projects I ever delivered were on VHS, and we've come a long way since then. And the one thing that it still gives me great pleasure is to hear that I've in some way been able to help people on their journey with using video to help grow their business. And really, essentially, that is what I've always been all about. It is, I don't know much, but what I do know is that video is a great way to grow your business. And that is what I have helped people with, from, solo entrepreneur startups all the way through to multinational blue chips, those organizations, and the likes of us, the kind of small business owner, all the way through to the mega corporations. They have all come to realize that video is a really important tool in the marketing toolkit, and one that we shouldn't be afraid of, and one that we really can learn to embrace. As we'll get onto this in a bit. You'll hear my story as to why I hid away behind the camera for years and years and years, but it's something we can do and we can learn to love.
Oh yes, I mean you've definitely convinced me, but I would like to know, obviously with social media and everything, with TikTok and Reels and YouTube, there's been a major push in the last 2 or 3 years for people to go on to start creating video content. But obviously you've been in business long before that. So you knew before everyone else did how powerful video is. And I would love to know how you figured that out.
Well, I mean, it's so we if we go back to the start of TV, TV, and the reason why TV became so successful is that right from the get-go, advertisers realized that it was incredibly powerful, and straight away it was business money that drove the growth and development of television. So from the get-go, people realized how powerful it was to put a product or a service or a representative of a brand into somebody's living room, into somebody's home, talking talking about a product, talking about a service in a way that was accessible and immediate and connected on both a sort of intellectual and an emotional level. And those fundamentals have never gone away. All that's happened is that process has become completely democratized. So all of us have access to this now. So whether or not you like it. It's here. We carry around in our pockets these things which can which we can produce video on of a quality which is just, to my ancient brain, if you'd have presented that to me in 2001, it would have been mind-boggling. It's mind-boggling. We could see where it was going, but I don't think that the sort of the direction of travel was fully appreciated.
Yeah.
So,
it's funny because Nicole and I, we record all of our joint episodes together on like my iPhone and with a ring light. Like that's all we need, and our microphones. And you basically have a mobile film studio in your pocket.
And that is just something which is so it's culturally, it is revolutionary, because we've seen, obviously the business ramifications are great, but we've seen what's happened in, with things like the Arab Spring revolts in the sort of 10 13 years ago or whatever it was, to now in sort of Ukraine. We're seeing that kind of citizen journalism that happens, and people getting real stories out of places that were previously very difficult to get stories out of. So we're seeing we see the sort of the social benefit, but also the risk. It allows every message to get out there, whether it is frankly complete and utter nonsense or true. We've seen the rise of fake news, disinformation, alternative facts, as they're called, or lies, as I like to call them. We've seen that sort of growth. So when we say it's a democratized kind of tool, it is that, and in for good or bad. But from a business point of view, it allows us to be front and center in our businesses, to be visible, to be seen as experts in our field. And the thing is, so many people really hate the idea of getting out in front of the camera, that there's still a huge opportunity for those of us who do get out in front of the camera. And that's what I love about it. It's like everybody's got an option to do this, but a remarkably small amount of people do, for a variety of different reasons. But it is a beautifully democratic tool, because when I first started, the idea that we could use live video to grow a business, for example, to do live video in business. First of all, when I started out, they would have asked, the question would have been, was like, why would you do live video? One, because it was cripplingly expensive, but two, where would you put it on? It's like broadcast TV. That was it. You could do. So whilst we until it wasn't until much later that we had that sort of cable TV kind of option here in the UK, but for a long time it was just like the 5 terrestrial channels, and that was that.
I remember that. The people who listen to a lot of episodes know I grew up in the UK, and I remember that. I remember when Channel 5 came out.
Yeah, it was like,
wow, exciting. Another channel.
And it's completely full of rubbish. Yeah, so that idea, so this idea that I for me, that's been the real shift, is that ability to communicate immediately. So we have pre-recorded video and we have live video, and they both do, they're superficially similar, but they both do very different things in people's businesses. But they give you that opportunity to connect with people, to take them on a journey deeper into your world, to bring a level of connection with people. I went to an event 6 months ago or so, and bumped into somebody who I'd never met, we'd not really spoken to, but this woman came up and started talking to me in a way that was just friendly and open, and kind of really, really sort of, kind of nice. It was just a really nice, easy conversation. And we both stopped and went, hang on, where did we meet? And we were like, we couldn't, and she said, no, I'm just a member of your group. I'm a member of your Facebook group, and I watch your lives. And it's like, and that for me really drove home that sort of notion that we can build very strong, meaningful relationships with our audience with live and pre-recorded video that is of huge benefit to the business, but also just, it's great for connection.
Well, and actually that I've attended one or two of your lives inside your Facebook group. I think it was when you were doing a challenge, and it really does feel like you're having like this like little cocktail hour one-on-one,
Yes.
even though you're speaking to many, many people. And it's, I mean, you and I've only met a handful of times, but I already feel like I've known you for ages, and that is the power of video.
Yeah, I think this is it. So, but what I think there's some, and here's the transition. So, we have to use it in a structured and strategic way, because it's very easy to just kind of press the go live button or press the record button and do that without a structure or a purpose, and so taking these sort of 4 key areas of strategy, story, kind of God, I can't think of what. These are my 4 pillars that I talk about all the time. Strategy, story. This is going to be really embarrassing. Strategy, story. You can leave this in, please, do, because it's this. I'm a great believer. I'm a great believer in.
Oh, we will. We do. We do minimal editing. We like to leave
story, technical expertise, and the other very important one, which I will come to in a second, because I like to leave something behind the closed door. But those are really important. Oh my God, this is so embarrassing. We have that sort of mindset. There we go. I got there in the end. Having those 4 key areas. Wow, good grief. 4 key areas kind of set out and kind of nailed down will give everybody who wants to do video the best possible chance of making it work with them. Because fundamentally, unless we are running a video production company, the core function of our business is not to create video content. Video content is a tool to make the other parts of the business work better. It's either helping you sell more or improving your customer care or doing up whatever it is. It's there to serve a function in the business. So you don't want to be kind of giving hours of your time up to creating content. And if you're starting out, or you're on a restricted budget, you might not be able to outsource that content production to somebody else. So you have to, if you're the kind of the content creator in your business, you have to be a smart content creator. So that involves sort of repurposing. So it could be that you're doing your live video content and repurposing. So I'm a great believer in taking a, I hesitate to use the word path of least resistance, but it's that's sort of what I mean.
That's what we're all about, is working smarter, not harder. So we have a guide it's our full circle content guide. And one of the things we recommend is to just start off with a 10 or 15 minute video where you cover one topic that your audience needs to know. And then you take that video and you can scrape the audio, and now you have a podcast episode. You can pop it in transcriber. Now you have a blog post. You can chop up that video into smaller things. And now you have reels, TikToks, YouTube shorts, and just taking that one video, turning a 10 or 15 minute video into 20 plus pieces of content. And thinking about it in terms of that, it's sitting down for that 10 minutes is just an investment, because you're going to get so much more out of it.
Absolutely. And I think, that's sort of taking that just sensible approach to it. And actually, when you're planning your sort of content strategy out, understanding that being realistic is also a really important part. So don't sort of openly commit to saying, I'm going to be producing a video every single day, when you could probably sustain it for a month, but actually after that you'll find. I mean, I'm all about finding tools, and actually I'm finding that using some of the AI tools out there at the moment is just proving to be an absolute godsend. So at the moment, I have running on my screen over here something that's been going for the last I've asked Chat GPT, the OpenAI, to generate 365 shorts video ideas for me, and we are currently up to 225, and they are they're probably about 80% good.
Wow.
So for me, I was like, I do want to be doing a short video every day, and I also want to be putting out some guides for people around sort of some of the technical stuff. So I wanted to just do, because I want to grow my TikTok presence over this year. That's one of my goals, alongside sort of continuing on sort of YouTube. But short form content is just so powerful at the moment. I was like, okay, well, this year I really want to do that. But to sit down and think up 365 daily tips is like, that's to me, that sounds like a lot of work.
Yeah.
So if there's a magic robot that can do it for me, I will give it to the magic robot. And
that's wonderful. You're going to have to make sure you give me the name of that robot,
yeah,
so I can pop it in the show notes. But I spent my December doing pretty much the same thing. We have 27 Showing Up Solo episodes at the end of last year, and I've gone and made 3 shorts from each of those.
amazing.
So I have at least 3 short form videos a week to post. And then I'm going to be having another probably 27 episodes. So throw those in, and suddenly I have 4 posts a week of short form videos. And it's all
That's
content
really
I've already done. Like, it's video I already made because I've just repurposed those previous episodes.
And I think that's really good for the, you know, if once you've done all that planning and worked out what that content is. But I mean, with the planning process, like, you know, as we all should, I always try and start with the end in mind. So what are my goals that I want to achieve in the business? And then you sort of reverse engineer the content from that goal to that sort of, you know, weekly breakdown of what it is you're putting out there. So, you know, whether it's growing my, so, you know, one of the goals I've got, I want to grow my membership to 250 people this kind of, you know, the first 4 months of the year. So I look at that goal and think, okay, what content do I need to put out that's going to drive people to be interested in that, to look for answers that I can help people with, so that, you know, that's part of that kind of funnel into it, and help people make a choice. You know, they make an informed choice. Do they want to learn from me, or is it something that's not right for them now? And, you know, I never want people sort of to feel, you know, coerced or anything into. So I want my marketing content to be an attractor rather than something that's like, you know, rather than a manipulator. So, you know, you take that approach to it, but, you know, as we all should, but sometimes not everybody does.
No.
But the mindset, you know, the creator mindset's really hard. And actually that sort of journey from behind the camera to in front of the camera was one that actually was quite difficult for me, because quite early on in my very early career, I can't remember. So this VHS cassette here is for a pilot for a TV show that was shot in 2002 called Attic Antiques. So my background is in art and antiques. I did my degree and my master's in fine art valuation. So I was brought on board my first ever job to write TV ideas around, you know, factual entertainment, around art and sort of, indeed, actually for Channel 5 daytime TV. So it would have been very classy. But it was actually Channel 4 who ended up giving a budget to Tapestry Productions was the production company I was working for at the time. That was my first job. Really amazing guy called John Trace, whose dad was one of the very early Blue Peter presenters. So he was TV royalty. But I was a presenter on this. We did it. We created it. We were very proud of it. Channel 4 came back and said, we love the format, but we just don't think Tom is TV gold. And I'm like, okay. And that was the point where I was like, okay, my job is behind the camera, helping other people tell their stories. And that was a story that I told myself for years and years and years. So I hid away. And, you know, I was running my business and thinking, gosh, you know, why is this so damn hard? And there came a point where I was like, right, this has got to change. You know, I want the business to be sort of doing better. And that was the point where I was like, I stopped hiding away behind my brand, you know, because, you know, essentially I was a small business trying to pretend that I was some kind of, you know, huge behind this brand. I was saying, well, I really want to grow the brand. And it's like, well, actually, the reality is I am, you know, myself and my wife, we are the brand.
You're the product, you're the service, like it's
which I was telling people all the time professionally, but I wasn't doing it myself. So I was like, hang on, it's time to take some of your own medicine, Tom. So I started doing that, and lo and behold, you know, it works. So you get out in front of it, but that act of coming out from behind the camera to in front of the camera was a difficult one for me, because when I first got in front of the camera, I was like, hang on, who's that tubby bald bloke? And it's like, you sort of think in your head, you're still 24, and you look at this person and go, oh, what's happened? So
yeah,
there's a whole bunch of stuff that you look when you look at yourself on camera for the first time, and there's some really interesting psychology that goes on there, in as much that we when we see so we build our self-image through looking in a mirror. And when we see ourselves on screen, so when I look at myself on the screen here, I'm seeing a flipped image to that which I would see in a mirror. And the brain is incredibly good, and it's incredibly adept at noticing small, microscopically small discrepancies in faces. It's got a great memory for that sort of thing. In fact, there are sort of whole dedicated areas of the brain that do just that. So when we see ourselves on screen flipped, intellectually we know it's us, but there's part of our brain going, hang on, there's something not quite right, because we don't, generally speaking, we don't have entirely symmetrical faces. So I know there's slight asymmetries in my chin, ears are a little bit weird, and so there's part of my brain that's going, don't know who that is. And so when we see yourself on screen for the first time, very often it will produce quite a visceral response, which is why a lot of people say things like, I hate seeing myself on screen, or I hate hearing myself. And so part of the big thing that we can do, the big piece of work that we can do when we first step in front of the camera, is to overcome that sense of looking at ourselves on screen and thinking, I don't like that, I hate that. And there are two things I would suggest, two quick things I would say. So first of all, this is about familiarity and breeding, and a kind of a sense of kind of familiarity with that image of you. So take a screenshot, print it out multiple times, and put it in places where you'll see it regularly for a couple of weeks. And that will help familiarize yourself with so you will know when you see that is you. That works remarkably well. And you can do that also with the sound of your own voice, because everyone says, oh, I hate the sound of my own voice.
Yeah.
That's another thing.
And it's funny. It's your voice.
But you're the only person who hears it like you do. Nobody else can hear it like that. And so all you're doing is hearing it how everybody else hears it. So that's an important thing to do. But again, that's a familiarity thing. So we've got that sort of little psychological hack that we can do to help rebuild a visual sense of self. That means we don't kind of have that sort of response. And in fact, there's been a number of very good peer-reviewed studies around this, and an experiment from the 1970s was rerun recently, and but with brain imaging, and actually very different parts of the brain light up when we see a mirror image compared to a flipped image. So actually there's just very, very kind of distinct things happening in the brain. The other thing is a little bit of self-kindness. I mean, imagine your best friend turned up at your house and said, I've filmed some videos, I'd love to show them to you. You sit down, cup of tea, you're watching the videos, and you turn around to that person and say, you know what, I absolutely hate the way you look on camera. You'd never do that. It'll be utterly devastating. It'll be horrible.
It'll be horrible.
Yet we do it to ourselves so readily. So I think just remembering a little bit of kindness and sort of consideration to ourselves is important.
That reminds me of an example I use quite often, especially when I have clients who are a little reluctant to show up on camera. I mean, I always remind them, first of all, that I had the same mind blocks. It's a choice. You choose to like the way you look and like the way you sound. You just choose to get over it, for want of a better phrase. But I always come back to this example from Schitt's Creek. I don't know if you're a Schitt's Creek fan, yes. But there's this episode where David has to go get his driver's license renewed, and he's panicking about it. And Alexis is in the car, and she's like, David, nobody cares. Yeah. This driving instructor isn't out to get you. He's probably thinking about his own life. And he gets in the car and he realizes that the driving instructor, or the guy taking the test, is really just focused on his weekend DJ gig. And I always think about that. Nobody cares. The truth is, we're very self-centered. Like as humans, we're very self-centered. We think about ourselves more than we think about others. So just remember, no one is looking at you and pulling you apart the way you are, because they're busy thinking about themselves and what's in it for them.
And in fact, even better than that, there have been studies done about how people react. In fact, people are actively rooting for you to succeed. There is this assumption that somehow people are excited when we fail. The evidence does not bear that out. There is a sort of low-level anxiety that we have when we see people who are doing what would be considered performances or in performance spaces, and that's on video. And we tend to want those people to do well because it saves us a degree of that kind of, oh my God. It's like being, if you've ever been in a theater and you've seen somebody on stage lose it, it is the most, it's really hard to bear because
your neurons firing and you want to avoid that cringe.
You want to avoid the cringe, and that is a powerful force. But it's the same for when we're on video. People are genuinely rooting for you, and there is always a small minority of people, the trolls, who will not be. But you know what? If you're getting trolls, you're making an impact. So they wear them as a badge of pride.
Yeah. And it's funny because I was very nervous about getting up on video a lot. And then the feedback I've had from other people who've said just personally, I really love that you show up and you don't seem to apologize for it. It makes me feel like I can do it too. And so I always like to talk about diversity on social media and online, because the more you show up, the more people like you will feel empowered to show up so that you won't be alone. You'll be one of many. So I think we could talk about this for hours. It is such an interesting topic, but Tom, for the listeners who are still on the fence, needing that extra push to get behind the camera, get in front of the camera, what are your top tips or golden nuggets?
Okay. So I've sort of touched on a few of them already. So first is have a really clear purpose for what you're doing, because if you have a clearly defined purpose, the getting in front of the camera becomes so much easier because you've got a reason to do it. There's a reason to make that content, and if you've got a reason, everything else sort of falls into place much more easily. So first of all, have a goal in mind and fit your content to that, and the showing up becomes easier. The second piece of information is kind of, make it just do it, actually, because so often we can get tied up with this idea that we've got to have the perfect kit. We've got to have, and so many times people will say, oh, but, they get very anxious about the equipment that we use. Take your phone, prop it up at eye level so you're not giving yourself multiple chins or kind of, so camera eye level. So prop it up on some books or whatever. Doesn't matter if it's portrait landscape. Don't get hung up about that. Have a clear plan of what you're going to say. So bullet point out what you want to say in your live, and just go live. Press the go live button, but with a purpose. So obviously you've got a plan, you've got a purpose, you've got it written out what you're going to be talking about. You don't need, the cameras and the microphones are perfectly fine on these. If you find that you really love it and you are finding that it is making a difference to your business, sure, then go out and invest in some kit. But just getting on with it, doing it. Now, there's something you can do to make that a little bit easier. So if you are, I'm talking a lot about live video, because live video is a really easy is actually counterintuitively a really easy place to start. Set up sorry, I'm going to just interrupt. There's things like StreamYard, for example, where you could use your webcam and you can go live, but you then get the recording, and so you can repurpose it. So I love live video too, even if it's just live for you. So it's not rehearsed or scripted. You just record it, and then you've got the content. Exactly. So what I love to do is, and I still do this, I have a dummy Facebook group set up, of which is set to private, which I am the only member of, and it is called Tom's Live Test Group. And I use that to test my kit. So I remove the anxiety around the equipment I'm using, but I also get to practice. When I was first starting out, I got to practice going live in that group, but no one's going to see it. I'm the only person there. Nothing's happening there. So that's a great thing to do. So we've got strategy, we've got kit. the mindset stuff I've talked about, things you can do to kind of shift your thinking around how you feel on camera. And then the story. We won't go deep into, because that's a big piece, but being very clear about the stories you can tell to illustrate. So for example, I've used today one of the stories that's in my little story kit. It's a little back, in my back pocket. I can pull out I've got a prop.
Oh yeah.
I've got a story, and it's something I can tell to illustrate a point. So, think about some of the stories that you could tell that will help your ideal customer or ideal audience member understand that you get what they're going through. So those
and my many, many food analogies.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah, exactly. We and those kind of stories are great because they are universal. There's if we're sort of telling story, God, I was going, well, you know how it is when you're on your private yacht, and it's like choose something that's universal that people. Yeah, it's like I don't just. So the stories it's a bigger piece, but have some things in your back pocket that you can sort of pull out. Maybe 3 or 4 little things that can illustrate key things that you do for people, ways you help, but are sort of formatted in the story. Those are great for video content. There's so much more we could talk about.
Oh, I know. And actually, I think we will probably have to have you back for another episode at some point, because obviously there you've got a whole series worth of content because you have your own YouTube channel and series.
Yes.
And so for those listeners who have been left desperately wanting more, where can people find you, Tom?
Okay, so I have I take a very sort of it is what it says on the tin kind of attitude to naming things. So I have a Facebook group, a free Facebook group called Grow Your Business with Video. No prizes for what that's about. I also have a paid membership called Video Skills Made Easy. I have I have a YouTube channel called Video Skills Made Easy, and that is kind of really the primary places where we can sort of where you can get a bit more of me. So every Thursday evening I go live and do something called Content and Cocktails, where I'll sit down and mix a cocktail, and it's basically an excuse for me to sit down and just chat nonsense about video and do sort of Q&A. So it's about an hour long, but that's one of the primary places where I do my live content. So yeah, come and join me in my little world if you so desire. You'd be very welcome.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for joining us today, Tom. This has been so informative, so insightful. And I really hope that people watching and listening, that you feel a little bit more inspired to get in front of the camera and create some video content, not just because you need to, but because now you want to. So thank you again for joining us, Tom, and thank you everyone for listening. Until next time, bye.
Thanks for listening. If you're a fan of the Showing Up Solo podcast, you can show your support by liking, commenting, sharing, or leaving a review. Want to spend less time on your marketing and make better content? Head to showingupsolo.com to grab your free copy of our Full Circle Content Guide, the same time-saving method we use for creating our own content. Need more help getting your marketing in order? Learn how to build a marketing plan while working smarter, not harder. Our Setup for Success package gives you everything you need to create a marketing plan that is low maintenance, high impact, and perfect for generating consistent leads. Head to showingupsolo.com for more info. See you next episode.